Okay, it's Michael and good morning everyone. Today we are going to discuss on the role of ADH. Okay, ADH is antidiuretic hormone in osmoregulation. So you might be wondering, what is osmoregulation? So osmoregulation is the maintenance of constant osmotic pressure in the body fluids, okay, of an organism by the control of water and salt concentrations. Okay, so it's in a word that it is a means um, how organism achieve homeostasis, okay, in their osmotic pressure within their body fluids by the control of the water and salt concentrations. Okay, so meaning say you control the salt and water concentration inside your body, okay, for your body to maintain homeostasis. Okay, so now we have one condition here. Let's say when there is huge loss of water, okay, or low water intake, okay, low drinking water intake or low fluid intake. Okay, so when you sweating too much, okay, too much of sweat, too much intake of salt in your diet, okay, low fluid intake, low water intake, this will cause the water potential in your blood to decrease or fall below the normal level, right? So when that happens, right, when your blood water potential decreases below the normal level, the osmoreceptor, which is in your hypothalamus, okay, in your hypothalamus, will detect the drop of water potential, right? It detects this drop of water potential. Now, another word for drop of water potential is the increase of blood osmolarity, right, or blood osmotic pressure. Okay, so whenever you see the word increase of blood osmolarity or increase of blood osmotic pressure, it is equivalent with the drop of water potential in the blood, right? So when this condition is being detected by the osmoreceptor in your hypothalamus, this osmoreceptor in your hypothalamus will generate an impulse and send that impulse to the hypothalamus. Okay, next what happened, your hypothalamus, right, will generate thirst, okay, and send this impulse, right, to the posterior pituitary gland that secretes ADH into the blood. Okay, and this ADH will travel to the kidney all the way from the posterior pituitary gland, right? You get that? Your hypothalamus generates thirst, okay, which eventually cause you to feel thirsty, right? And you will drink water as a response to that thirst sensation that was being generated by the hypothalamus. Now, your hypothalamus also generates impulse that sends this impulse to the posterior pituitary gland, right? And in return, ADH is being secreted by the posterior pituitary gland, right? And of course, hormones travel in your bloodstream, so that the ADH travels all the way to your kidney from the posterior pituitary gland. Okay, so now you have the ADH, right, from the posterior pituitary gland travel all the way to your kidney. Okay, now so this is your kidney, right? Now this is the lumen of the collecting duct, as well as the lumen of the distal convoluting tubule, right? Okay, so this is the region where you have the peritubular capillaries, if you recall. Okay, so now the ADH is in your bloodstream, right? So the ADH will be in your peritubular capillaries, which is in this region. So the ADH, all right, will bind to the ADH receptor, right, on the surface of the distal convoluting tubule, as well as on the collecting ducts, right? So what happens when this ADH already bind with the ADH receptor, right? This will cause a series of cascade reaction. Do you recall the action of non-steroid hormone, which is via cascade reaction, okay, where a small amount of hormone will trigger the synthesis of a series of reaction, okay. I can't recall already. Okay, so you try to recall back, okay, on that matter. So all I can say is that this ADH will trigger cascade reaction, okay, which is a series of reaction. Okay, now this reaction, okay, this series of cascade reaction, okay, that occurs inside the tubular cell, right, as well as in the collecting duct cells, okay. This cascade reaction will form vesicles. You can see these vesicles, or to be more precisely, it's a storage vesicle that has aquaporine channels. So these are the aquaporine channels, okay. Yeah, if you recall that a cascade reaction is a series of reaction where a small amount of hormone, okay, can trigger the synthesis of massive amount of protein, right? So this aquaporine is a protein transport. So you see, one ADH can trigger the synthesis of many storage vesicle with aquaporine channel, right? Okay, the storage vesicle is not a protein, but the aquaporine channel is a protein, which is as a result of the cascade reaction. Okay, next, this aquaporine, right? You can see these aquaporine channels, which is within the storage vesicle, right? Move towards the surface of the tubule cells as well as surface of the collecting duct cells, right? And then these aquaporine channels are exocytosized. Okay, you can see these aquaporine channels are being exocytosized into the inner membrane of the tubular cells, right, as well as the collecting duct cells. So what happens after that? The presence of this aquaporine channel, right, on the inner membrane of the tubular cells will cause water permeability, okay, of the distal convoluting tubules and collecting ducts to increase. So when water permeability, right, increases on the inner membrane of these tubular cells as well as the collecting duct cells, what happens? Eventually, water will diffuses. Okay, water from the lumen of the distal convoluting tubules and from the lumen of the collecting duct. Right, the water from this region, these lumens, will diffuse via osmosis into the distal tubular cells, right, or the water will diffuse into, okay, the collecting duct cells, right, and finally into the peritubular capillaries. Here you can see the diffusion of the water from the lumen, right, from the lumen of the distal convoluting tubule and the lumen of the collecting duct. The water will diffuse by osmosis into the peritubular capillaries. So lots of water is being reabsorbed back into the peritubular capillaries. When lots of water are being reabsorbed back, what happens to the concentration of the urine? The concentration of the urine will be very concentrated, right? Or little urine is being produced by the kidney. Okay, so now you have more water being reabsorbed back to your peritubular capillaries. So what happened to your water potential in your blood? So the water potential in your blood or the blood volume, right? The water potential of your blood or your blood volume will increases, okay, back to the normal level, or the osmotic pressure in your blood will decreases back to the normal level. And then what happens after that? ADH secretion is inhibited. Okay, so now A large volume of urine production is called diuresis. Okay, diuresis. Large volume of urine. So ADH is called anti-diuretic hormone, because if you recall what you have studied here, the presence of this ADH will cause concentrated urine to be synthesized. So ADH is therefore called anti-diuretic hormone. All right, because again, as a conclusion, what you have learned, ADH increases the water permeability of the distal convoluting tubule and collecting ducts. So blood osmolarity, ADH secretion, and water reabsorption in the kidney are linked in a negative feedback circuit, which contribute to homeostasis. Okay, that is the conclusion on what we have learned. Okay, because as you have known, when blood osmolarity increases, ADH will be secreted, right? And the water reabsorption will be increases in the distal convoluting tubules and collecting duct. So this is a negative feedback which restore the blood osmolarity, to the normal level. So now, what will happen then if there is too much of water intake? Right. So for my students in the class, by right there should be discussion amongst you, right, where you need to present your answer. Okay. So since this is an online class, so we discuss it here then, right? Or you may do it on your own first, then you come back to this video and watch it to check your answer. So when there's too much of water intake, right, mean to say the water potential of blood will increases above the normal level. Okay, so the osmoreceptor in the hypothalamus detects the increase of the water potential, right, and send impulse to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus send impulse to the posterior pituitary gland to inhibit secretion of ADH into the blood. So when there is lack presence of ADH in the blood, what happens? There is no binding of ADH with the ADH receptor, in the distal convoluting tubules, right, as well as in the collecting duct. So water permeability of the distal convoluting tubule and collecting duct decreases. So less water is being reabsorbed into the peritubular capillaries. So large volume of dilute urine is produced. And this condition is called diuresis. Right? So this diuresis will decrease the water potential back to the normal level. Okay, so hope you gain something from today's discussion. Okay, bye.